Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money. With your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 92 of Screw the Commute podcast. We got a great guest. I've known this guy and admired him for a long time. It's Robert Siciliano, and he's a man cut out of my cloth, man. He hates fraud. He hates dangerous things. So you'll hear about him in a minute. Now, the last episode, it's really exciting compared to this one, I'll tell you. It's about business graphics. It's about my Monday session where I go in depth on a topic that's either made me or saved me a lot of money. And it might not be exciting, but I'll tell you what, I can't tell you the amount of money I've seen people blow on branding and printing and website graphics before they even sold anything. So all that stuff nearly broke them. So I'm going to tell you how to get world-class graphics on the cheap in that episode, or I did in that episode. That was 91. All right, our podcast app is now in the iTunes store. You can go to screwthecommute.com/app, A-P-P, and it does all kinds of cool things, like you can be on a phone call in your car and listening to the podcast, and then it'll pause itself until you're done with the call and then pick right back up and save your favorite episodes and all kinds of stuff. And we have complete training at screwthecommute.com/app, so you see how to use all these cool features. Now, we started our youth program, and when I say youth, I mean up to early 20s, where we feature a great young person that's got the entrepreneurial spirit about once a month. So if you know any kids that are like that, you can give them my email, orders@antion.com, orders@antion.com. Of course, all these things will be in the show notes, and they can apply to be featured on this and have lots of people hear about what they're doing. All right, our sponsor, as a perfect sponsor for this episode, is imtcva.org. It's my school. And I started my school because there's so much fraud in the unregulated internet marketing field. I mean, I wanted to set myself apart. To get to school, I had to go through tremendous scrutiny that nobody else in this field had to go through, and background checks, financial checks, surety bonds, all these things. It actually took 3 years just to get the license. So if you want a quality education in a highly in-demand field where you can start your own business or work for others, or both, my school is the place to go. It's imtcva.org. It's a distance learning school, and it's asynchronous, which means you can study anytime, day or night. All right, let's get to the main event. Robert Siciliano is a CSP. For those of you who don't know, that's a certified speaking professional. That's a very high-level person that's also gone through a tremendous amount of scrutiny to get that designation. He's the number one best-selling author and CEO of Safer.me. Now, Safer is spelled SAFR.me. And, of course, all this stuff will be in the show notes. And he's serious about teaching you fraud prevention and personal security. Now, Robert is a security expert, fiercely committed to informing, educating, and empowering people so they can protect themselves and their loved ones from violence and crime. Robert, are you ready to screw the commute, man? The commute.
Yeah, I'm from Boston, so we know all about that.
You know. So, hey, boy, it's great catching up with you. I haven't talked to you for, 100 years or so. So tell everybody what you're actually doing now, and then we'll go backwards and see where you came from in your entrepreneurial journey. What are you doing now?
Sure. So I run a security awareness firm. We provide security awareness training to a number of different niche industries, financial advisors, mortgage brokers, those who handle finances, including, even real estate agents. Mm-hmm. And we go in and we do keynotes, breakout sessions, workshops, full day programs. And we also provide e-learning tools so they can, study at their own, on their own time frame.
Right.
And we also provide a certification program. So it's called the SAFE certification, secure security awareness for everyone, and secure agent for everyone. We provide that to a number of different industries as well.
So what kind of things do you teach people? If you're coming into my company and I had a problem, what are the types of things that you get into?
Well, first and foremost, most people, when it comes to security issues, as you probably know, they don't really want to know about
Yeah,
security.
that's true.
It's just one of those topics that they just prefer to avoid, say it can't happen to me. Those things don't happen around here. Why would they want to target me and so forth? And they just function in a state of denial. And that state of denial, that, avoiding the issue becomes a significant problem in a small, medium, large business when those employees, begin to click links in the body of emails. They begin to provide sensitive information over the phone. They begin to do things that are, essentially bad security habits, putting their organization and their data at risk. And so I come in and I kind of expose the mess that's going on out there and why it's such a big problem. And ultimately, the responsibility of that individual to their organization. And the way I do that is by focusing on them as individuals, meaning like them as citizens, them as consumers, them as, spouses and moms and dads, and hit them like what's in it for me, like how it affects them individually, because people aren't going to do anything until they, realize how it affects them, because we're, selfish by nature,
right?
Need to be. And I focus on them as individuals first, and then expand into how that, then affects their organization's security posture.
Now, do you do any, I think they call it social engineering. One of the things you mentioned, they're giving out sensitive information. So do you do a high tech or a highfalutin secret shopper against them to show them some of the ways they can be broken into?
So I definitely spend a lot of time on exposing, what the con men and women are doing out there. Mm-hmm. Social engineering is a term that revolves around, computer-based fraud. Social engineering is phishing emails. It's even, using the telephone. It's any, confidence crime. Mm-hmm. And so I do spend a lot of time on exposing all the various confidence crimes that happen in the physical and virtual world, how that can easily affect them. And I use examples like, P.T. Barnum once said, there's a sucker born every minute. But I take it one step further, and I really believe that there's a sucker in every single one of us. I mean, we can all be suckered. Hell, if you've bought a timeshare, you've been suckered.
Right.
So like every single person walking is capable of being hoodwinked. It's a matter of recognizing our, vulnerabilities, the fact that we can, in fact, be scammed. And once we accept that, then we begin to recognize risk in a very different way. And it's not about being paranoid. It's about being aware. And so I provide a level of security awareness that I hope evolves into what I call security appreciation. And security appreciation is a whole nother level of security awareness. Security awareness is, head-based. Like you're aware that you should lock your doors, and you're aware that you should have a home security system, and you're aware that you should take a self-defense course, and you're aware that you should not click the link in the body of the email. But security appreciation is actually doing something about it. It's heart-based. It's actually like in your cellularly, like you get it. Like you actually install that home security system. You actually enable it. You actually are aware. You actually take it to heart. That's my goal, is to change behavior in a way that it evolves from security awareness to security appreciation.
Yeah, and that's an uphill battle because, I was developing that show. I actually still am in Hollywood called Scam Brigade. And people just, want to hide their heads in the sand. I mean, there's a famous saying, something like, if you think, some con man said, if you think you can't be scammed, I want to meet you. Some of the smartest people think, oh, it couldn't happen to me. But boy, it sure doesn't reflect in the amount of money that's being lost to these things every year.
Yeah, it's, trillions of dollars are lost annually in various forms of fraud.
People are losing their homes. Elderly people are getting it. Take it out of the business realm. a lot of elderly people. I think when I was doing my research, 125,000 people a year lose their homes from some type of, the Jamaican lottery scam and things like that. So it's really terrible.
Yeah, and and you look at the nature of these scams, whether it's the grandparent scam or romance scams or various lotteries and so forth, and you say, who the hell are these people getting scammed? Like, how stupid could you possibly be? But the fact is all research points towards these scams are preying upon the most naive and the most vulnerable.
Right.
And there's just simply plenty of people out there like that. There's just no end to it. I have people in my own life, like really close to me, that are like literally CEOs of tech companies.
Oh my God.
That as recent as this week have made the stupidest possible mistakes that you could ever make. And they call me and say, okay, so what should I do? I just got this communication. I just got this phishing email, and my computer's been taken over, and I get this recording over and over and over again that won't shut up, and it's telling me I've got to call a phone number, and if I don't call the phone number, it's going to wipe out my computer, and I have to give credit cards. Like, what should I do? And I say, well, you should take your computer to your local Microsoft authorized dealer and have them wipe your drive and reinstall your operating system to rid it of all of whatever virus you have. Okay, and what do? What do they do next? They pick up the phone and they call the phone number and they give the guy a credit card number.
Oh my God!
And it's like, what did I tell you? Well, you didn't tell. I told you to take it to a Microsoft authorized dealer. Like it's just, and that's just people.
Exactly. I mean, when I had my nightclub, I had the chief surgeon of a big hospital that came by every day after work and had a beer, and he actually came in and showed me, if you remember, the old publishing clearinghouse Ed McMahon envelopes, and he says, "Tom, I just won $1 million. I couldn't believe it." And I mean, luckily, it's not technically a scam, but he believed that he had won $1 million, and he's like a highly learned chief surgeon. So you can be anybody and get scammed if you're not aware. And even when you're aware, it's hard sometimes. So you got plenty of work, buddy, for the rest of your career. That's for sure.
Yeah, I always say, bad guys are good for business.
Yeah, right. All right, so let's back it up. So where did you come from to get into this field? I mean, did you ever have a job?
So my process has been an evolutionary one. I started off as a kid in the Boston area, and early on I got mugged by 5 kids.
Wow.
And they took money, and that kind of woke me up to bad guys and predators and thieves. And a year after that, I had met a young girl, and I was 13 and she was 12, and we liked each other, and she confided in me that her mom's boyfriend had raped her.
Oh,
and I was 13 at the time, and we're going on 37 years ago, and I didn't even know what sex was, never mind rape. And so I go home and I asked my dad, like, what's sex? What's rape? And he gave me the birds and the bees and forcible rape in the same conversation. So being a victim of a mugging and a multiple attack situation a year earlier and meeting a young girl that had been sexually assaulted, it really affected the way I viewed the world from an early age. So from that point on, I started, educating myself on personal security and taking self-defense, and began to teach and train all those around me, and got into, martial arts and eventually personal bodyguarding and barroom bouncing, and did a bunch of different things revolving around security. And by the time I was 25, I'd written a book on it because, it became a really significant focus of my life.
Right.
And took all my research and all my experience and put that in book form, and then, joined the National Speakers Association.
Right.
And that was my first professional trade organization. And
what year was that?
94.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
95. So that was my first conference. It was in Washington, D.C. And Naomi Rhodey was the president at the time. And I had never seen people talk like that. Like I didn't,
yeah.
I didn't know that you could communicate like that. And I was just blown away. Like at the time, I remember being surrounded by people like Brian Tracy and Zig Ziglar and Dennis Waitley, and I was just like, it was like going to church, it was, and it was awesome. And so I wanted more of that in my life, and so I just stuck around, and I'm still involved in NSA today as a certified speaking professional, and so I learned all my entrepreneurial skills through NSA, and then over the years learned actually how to build a business and what scale is. And so, over the past decade, the speaking industry has changed dramatically, and tech has, evolved. And so everything has just changed, and you have to change with it. And, I'm doing that probably not nearly as quick as I'd like to, but, I'm where I need to be as far as building a scalable business.
Well, how were you paying the bills during those early days?
So, like I said, evolutionary process. When I got out of high school at 18 years old, I remember my dad, bringing my dinner to the gas station. I was pumping gas at.
Okay, yeah. So you were working.
Oh yeah. So at 18 years old, I didn't know what the hell I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from a blue collar background,
Right, me too.
My dad brought me my dinner, and I'm like, Dad, I graduate in like 2 months. What the hell am I going to do when I grow up? He's like, well, you're going to be a pipe fitter. I'm like, well, what the hell's a pipe fitter? He goes, it's what I do. You know what a pipe fitter is? I'm like, okay, I'll be a pipe fitter. And so I remember getting out of high school, and I went to trade school, and I learned to be a pipe fitter, and I started working with my dad. I got into the union, and I remember he dropped me off at the very first gig. It was at MIT Lincoln Labs in the Boston area, and he stuck me in a room, a construction site with a pipe machine and a threader and an oiler, and he taught me how to thread pipe. And I'm on the job all by myself. My father left for the day. He goes, I'll be back, 3:00 in the afternoon, and I'm threading pipe all day long. I'm looking around. I'm saying to myself, being a pipe fitter sucks. So I basically spent the next 13 years trying not to be a pipe fitter. And that's how I built my business, was, through subsidizing my speaking and training and security business as a pipe fitter. And by the time, I got good at it, I'd written a book, and, when that, how a book works, it brings you all kinds of attention. And well, back in the day it did. Now everybody has a book. And I got on, back in the day, Montel Williams and Maury Povich and Sally Jesse Raphael and Howard Stern and all the morning shows. And I built a website in '95. And so I was, online and before most people were. And so early that I owned LedZeppelin.com for like 7 years. That didn't end well, but yeah. I've been around for a long time. And then my business didn't really take off until, 9/11.
Wow.
So, that kind of woke people up as far as like what I was doing and what security is and what it means, and personal security began to evolve dramatically. And my focus evolved as well, because, early on in the mid 90s, I was talking about personal security as it relates to violence prevention and theft prevention, primarily in the physical world. And then in 1996, my small business got hacked. Had thousands and thousands of dollars worth of credit card fraud that I had to pay back via chargebacks, and lost all kinds of
right.
And so I began to learn about information security as it pertained to, identity theft and criminal hacking and credit card fraud. And that was in the mid 90s, when that wasn't like a big focus of anybody's, for that matter. And then by 2001, when 9/11 hit, I'd already been speaking about identity theft, and I'd already been speaking about data security and, of course, physical security. So between 2001 and here we are at 2019, I've appeared on over 700 TV shows. I've been sourced in 5,000 plus articles, and I have clips and links and, copies of all that stuff. I have every single media spot I've ever been on. And my brand evolved, and over the years, being an early blogger and bringing attention to myself via PR, lots and lots of security companies wanted to align their brand with mine, and so corporate sponsorship became a big thing, back in the mid 2000s. And so I worked with a lot of big brands as a corporate or a company spokesperson, helping them, bring attention to their physical, digital, or software product. And so my clients have been, MasterCard and McAfee and Intel and ADT and Schlage Locks and Century Safe. And the list goes on and on and on. And I still have clients that I work with in that capacity as a blogger, as a, spokesperson. And
were you able to do some of these sponsorships concurrently because they weren't competitive?
I've never worked with the same product in the same time frame. So
Right,
yeah,
right. So you were
I've
able to do multiple sponsorships as long as they weren't competitive.
no problem.
Hmm.
You
Well,
know,
that's
many.
great. You can really multiply your amount of money.
Oh yeah, yeah. So and often they would complement each other as well. So
Hmm.
and that aspect of my business, was really hot from around 2010 to around 2015. And then what happened was, at least for me, and I saw it coming. I understood what was happening. When big data really figured itself out, when social media, Facebook's primarily figured out, how to monetize all their traffic, then the game changed significantly. So big data meaning like they took all the information that they've been compiling over the years, and they were able to sift it and sort it and be able to, basically digital advertising changed from being a banner ad to
Highly targeted. I mean, they know everything about you and me and what shoe size we have.
exactly. And Facebook being, one of the major players in that marketplace, they were able to, basically provide advertising for companies, and they could tell you specifically to the penny what your ROI is. And so PR, the type of PR that had been doing for quite some time, bringing attention to my brand and my clients' brands, it didn't have, you couldn't really determine the
Right,
ROI.
right. You couldn't track it exactly like they can.
Track it, yeah. So once big companies figured that out, that they could spend the same amount of money every single month on advertising via, social and so forth, even online marketplaces, the type of advertising that I was doing as a spokesperson didn't have as much value any longer
Right,
because
right.
couldn't figure out the ROI. So, my business has changed and evolved and grown, and it's roller coastered. But today I'm doing just fine.
Well, how do you keep up with all the electronic attacks? I mean, are you technical yourself, or do you have people that keep an eye on that stuff and report to you, or what?
So I'm not a hacker. I've never been, inclined to code, or even, as a software developer. I'm just not a hacker.
Hmm.
And hacker is not necessarily a bad word.
No, I have a friend of mine that's an ethical hacker. That's what she
Yeah,
does, is get paid to try to break things.
yeah, and I guess your audience would understand that. I have never been technically inclined, but I know in that regard. But
Hmm.
as far as being a first adopter and understanding tech, and I've been doing that for a good 2/3 of my life at this point. But I consider myself on top of what is new and ahead of what is next at all times regarding information security, personal security, security awareness. So, like, I'll get a call from the Associated Press, and they'll say, "Hey, did you hear about this particular hack?" And I'll immediately search it online, and I'm instantly able to respond to what happened and
Hmm.
why, because when it comes to fraud and hacking and personal security and workplace violence and scams and all that stuff, I speak to the fundamentals. And the fundamentals, are the fundamentals. They never change. The nuances might change, in certain aspects of fraud or scams or violence might change, but you always go back to the fundamentals. So no matter what occurs, whenever what happens, no matter what tragedy there is, I can speak to it because there's nothing so dynamically different from one hack or one exposure or one breach or one workplace violence incident to the next. I mean, it's just active shooter scenarios. It all is the same to a certain degree.
All right. Well, from the electronic point of view, we have a lot of people that are solopreneurs and small business people with one or two employees. What are some tips you would give them from the electronic aspect about phishing and protecting their data and all that stuff?
Yeah, well, there's a number of things that one needs to be aware of. So, getting to the fundamentals, your hardware, you have to make sure that you generally have devices, whether they're laptops, desktops, tablets, mobile phones, Androids, iPhones, so forth. You have to have hardware that's no older than 3 to 5 years.
Hmm.
Once you get beyond 5 years, once your hardware is beyond 5 years old, it lacks the capacity to handle updated operating systems, updated software. So you really need newer hardware. I mean, if you've got an old 10-year-old laptop or PC, it just does not have the capacity to thwart the viruses, the vulnerabilities that are coming across today.
So you think you're saving money and you're all proud of yourself for taking care of your equipment, but you could be opening yourself to enormous hassle, right?
Yeah, that device at best might be okay for a media server in your home, but it really shouldn't even be connected to the internet.
Okay.
So that, that's one thing. Update your hardware, and then of course update your software. And software comes in two forms. Basically, it's your operating system is the primary mechanism that handles all the different software programs. So update your operating systems, whether that's your Android or your Mac or your iDevice or whatever, Windows and so forth. You have to have the latest version of your operating system, because that is like making sure that your engine in your car is running good and your tires are up to date and your operating system is huge. Like vulnerabilities in your OS are huge. And then beyond that, make sure all your software is updated. So Adobe and your Office and whatever you use on your Windows or Mac, all your apps have to be updated.
So you generally
because older, antiquated.
I was going to say, are you generally safer if you're using a software as a service? Like, say, I got Adobe Cloud stuff that I pay $20 a month, and so it's their problem to keep it updated, then, right? Or not?
That is correct. Yeah, but your operating system still has to be updated.
Right.
But your SaaS is
software as a service, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but any local software you have, whenever it prompts you to update, you should update it. There's a reason behind that.
Right.
Because of functionality issues, or more often, security vulnerabilities. And the way you can look at updating operating systems, updating software, for functionality issues and security issues is like if you get a notification that your airbag in your Toyota is defunct, that they determine a vulnerability, so there's a recall. Well, that's what software updates are all about. Like it's a form of a recall, and you have to update it because there's something wrong with it. And it doesn't mean that the software company did anything wrong. It just means that, over time, an exploit was discovered and they just had to, fix it.
Right.
So beyond that, security software is antivirus, anti-spyware, anti-phishing, and a firewall. You always have to run security software on your Windows machine and your Mac. Your Macs are vulnerable. You need an antivirus on a Mac.
Yeah, people never used to worry about that, but that's changed, right?
It's changed dramatically. It's Macs are ubiquitous at this point, and they're a target. And people who have a little bit of money in the bank often have, Macs. That's just the way it works, because they're expensive. And so they're a target. So you have to have antivirus for a Mac, antivirus for an Android, definitely for an Android. They have hundreds of thousands of viruses targeting Androids. You don't need antivirus for an iDevice, like an iPad or an iPhone, because it doesn't even exist. From my understanding, from what I know, I don't know if there are any viruses that target iDevices, unless, of course, you jailbreak your iDevice. Mm-hmm. Jailbreak is basically you take it out of the walled garden of Apple.
Right.
But you don't need or even have access to antivirus for iDevice. And then beyond that, password management. One of the paths of least resistance to get access to your devices or your web accounts is passwords. And the problem here is that most people are using the same password across multiple accounts.
Yep, that's for sure. And I read an article a while back. Let me get your opinion on this. It was saying that putting all these question marks or exclamation points and stuff is cool. But this article said that if you had a password that was like, I don't like to punch Bob in the face twice a week, is better than all these other things. What is your opinion on that?
So passphrases are better than passwords, generally because they're longer and they might include uppercase, lowercase. Okay. It's always better to have uppercase, lowercase numbers and, if allowed, characters. And here's what it boils down to. It really doesn't matter whether it's a passphrase, a password. It matters uppercase, lowercase numbers and characters. And what also matters is that you don't have words like, princess, mm-hmm. Robert, or consecutive numbers or consecutive keystrokes, like QWERTY and so forth. Using like the word password is not a good password.
Yeah.
And then, beyond that, it's not having the same password across multiple accounts. That's kind of the big one.
Mm-hmm.
Because having the same password across multiple accounts means that if one account is compromised, and that one account could be, some old social media site that you subscribed to a decade ago, and you use, your gmail.com as your username, and you use this, reused password that you've been using for 10 years on that old social media site, and then that site gets hacked. Now your username and your password for that old site is now exposed. And so what bad guys then do is they take your credentials for that old site and they plug it into Visa, MasterCard, American Express, eBay, Amazon, right, iCloud, and they plug it into like the 100 most popular sites on earth to see if it works. And often it does. And then beyond that, there have been billions of records compromised in the past decade. Billions. When I say billions, like upwards of 20 billion records or more have been compromised in the past decade.
That was just on Facebook. That was a whole different thing, right?
Oh, yeah. And that too. Just in the past 3 years, there's been 16 billion records compromised between 2016 and 18.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So that's usernames and passwords, which is email addresses and their associated passwords. And all of that data is circulating. It's out there. It's literally available to anybody who wants access to it. And they sort that data. I mean, think about sorting a billion records in an Excel file, for that matter, right? You can sort it by name, by email address, by password, and you could literally see somebody's information that's been compromised on 20 different websites. You could see all the same usernames and all the same passwords for that person, and then literally just take that data, copy and paste it, and log into their accounts.
Yeah, and they got scripts that they can hit a button and just watch this work automatically.
And that's it. So it's been made really easy for the bad guy. And so if you have the same password across multiple accounts, today, that's often how they get into your accounts and take over your accounts and, liquidate money from your bank account and so forth.
Yeah, and you just don't want to learn this lesson the hard way. So what kind of stuff do small business people, what can they get off of you to help them and learn about this?
Well, for one, subscribe to my blog and, follow what I do.
What is it? Is that at the safer.me?
Yeah, so safr.me, so safr.me. And, come to my blog and sign up for my newsletter and, communicate. I send out a newsletter and I keep my audience on top of what is new and ahead of what is next on all things security all the time. Invest in e-learning for you and your staff. Bring a security expert who provides security awareness training and breaks it down into bite-sized chunks for your people into your organization to, basically, jumpstart a security awareness program so that your people are fully aware of what it is that they should be doing. I got a book, definitely the book helps.
What's the title of it?
So if you go to Amazon and search Robert Siciliano, you'll see all kinds of, I've written 5 books. So Identity Theft Privacy is my recent one.
Oh, great. Okay, because we'll have all this in the show notes for everybody and the spelling of your name and so forth. So they can take advantage of that. But if some of them happen to be in bigger companies, they can book you at the same site?
Yeah, that's one way I feed my family. And I've worked with some of the biggest companies in the world: Cox Communications, UPS, ExxonMobil, Merrill Lynch, and the list goes on and on and on.
Now, do you have kids that are using cell phones and stuff?
So I got girls, and they're 10 and 13, and they do not have mobile phones. I don't think that
Go
kids.
ahead and talk about that a little bit, because I'm sure a lot of people out there are struggling with this issue.
It's struggling because they introduced it to their kids and they gave it to them because they caved.
Mm-hmm.
As parents, we control the information flow. And your child at 10, 11, 12, 13, even 14, even 15, frankly, does not have the emotional capacity to deal with all the that goes on the web. They just don't. And they don't have the ability to fight off all the various tech that is designed to addict them to that tech. It literally is addicting on purpose. And so when you put a 10-year-old, when you let a mobile phone or a tablet babysit your 10-year-old at dinner or while they're waiting in line, you are exposing them basically to technology that is going to mess their head up, mess them up emotionally. And all the research is out. I mean, this has been going on now for 15, 20 years, and book after book after book written by neuroscientists, social psychologists, and others points to addiction and technology, and it's a real thing.
Well, I just heard on the news the other day, there's rehab centers opening for this specific thing for children addicted to technology.
Yeah, this is not a technology problem, ladies and gentlemen. This is a parenting problem. And when parents throw their arms up in the air and go, "Oh, my kid knows more about tech than I do," well, that's a problem. And when you just, say, "Well, my kid has a phone at 12 because all his friends have phones and he kept hounding me," that's poor decision making. You haven't done your research, and I'm not. Yeah, I am slamming parents because they haven't done their research. Like you're giving your kid access to hardcore violent pornography when you give them a mobile phone at 10, right? Would you give your kid the keys to the car at 10? No. Would you give your kid the keys to the car at 16 if they weren't safe and secure to drive? No. So why would you give them access to everything at 10?
Now, what about the argument I hear some of them making? Well, if they get in trouble or something, they can call home.
Get them a dumb phone. Get them a feature phone.
Okay, tell us about that.
My 87-year-old mother-in-law has a feature phone. It allows her to make a phone call. It's a flip phone. Then. Allows her to make a phone call. It's a communication device.
This not a burner phone, right? Is that what they would call it in the underworld, or just
no? Well, I mean, like there's Jitterbug. I mean, if you go to AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, they get all kinds of phones that are feature phones.
That's what they're called, then, a feature phone.
Yeah, a feature phone.
Okay. I don't have any kids, so I never have to deal with this problem, but I hear about it all the time.
Yeah, well, elderly, generally, post, say, 75 may have a hard time with a smartphone. So they have feature phones for them. And, we've all had feature phones. If you're, I don't know, 30 plus, you've had access to feature phones. They've been around and they haven't gone away. And so that's what you provide them, is a communication device, not necessarily a smart device that gives them everything. And the social aspect of being online, when it comes to bullying, right. And forget about it. Like, none of that is okay. Look at my kids' world is their mom and their dad, right? Like, that's it. There's no 24-hour news cycle going on in my house. There's no access to full-blown web 24/7. There's no access to what's going on in this world. Like, they know what we provide. We control the information flow, and that's that.
Do you homeschool them, or
no? They go to a private school.
Okay,
but
well, that's in a way controlling something, because you wouldn't have enrolled them if you didn't agree with what they do, I imagine.
That's correct. And even the conversations we have with other parents, a lot of the parents that recognize risk, they don't have phones for their kids either. But there's a lot of parents that are still in the dark, but at their school specifically, they are not allowed to have mobile phones on campus. And I would do everything in my power not to send them to a school that allowed mobile phones on campus. Mm-hmm. In the one time that phones were allowed on campus for a previous school they went to that we removed them from, the friggin' fourth grade little bastard that went to school with my daughter showed her porn in fourth grade.
Oh my God.
And we were gone a month later. Like, that's just not happening. And parents need to know, like, they can control this. So, and it's going to get worse. It's not going to get any better. And the kids are going to get younger because parents are clueless. And frankly, like, the only good that's going to come out of all this, kids having these devices and being, so like antisocial at this point, is that my kids are going to be CEOs of major companies because they're going to be the only ones that are going to be friggin' social. You know, because all the rest of the kids, like my kids go to parties and they come home and I go, how was the party? And they were like, it stunk. I go, why does it stink? They said, because there was 30 kids at the party and 29 of them were just buried in their phone the entire time.
Yeah, you see them out at in a restaurant and nobody's talking to anybody. They're just looking at their phone.
This is no longer a joke. This is a serious problem. And these kids cannot articulate a sentence. They can't communicate. Like, they don't know how to be social. You throw my 10 and 13-year-old in a room with adults, they'll carry on a conversation with anybody about anything.
That's really great, Robert.
Whereas you have all these other kids, like, they're just being stymied. You know, they don't know.
This one father got his girl had 20,000 texts in 1 month to her best friend, who she sits next to on the bus. I mean, just crazy.
So a family that we're close with, last year they got their daughter the phone and in 7th grade, and they didn't understand what was happening. Like, all of a sudden their daughter's gone for like 3 hours a night. Like, she's gone from like 5 to 8 o'clock, and they didn't understand what was going on. And she'd come out, and then all of a sudden, like, she started coming out of her room at 8 o'clock, like every night, crying, and they couldn't understand what was going on. Like, they're thinking hormones, they're thinking, you know, whatever. And they figured it out because they finally got access to her phone, that like she was involved in this massive chat with like 30 girls, and they're like all bullying each other and talking about each other. And this went on for like months and months and months, and it was affecting her development and her grades and everything else. And they finally took the phone away. And when they took the phone away, like, it was like tragic taking the phone away. And then after about 2 weeks, the girl's like, Mommy, Daddy, thank you so much for taking my phone away.
Wow.
Like, what a relief that was. You know, like, I'm so glad I don't have to deal with any of that BS any longer. You know, like, so the parents, it took them months to step in, but once they did, their kid appreciated it. So it's not too late if you're one of those parents that's facing all the drama. You know, you can put your foot down. But I'm telling you, this problem, digital literacy in this country is a huge issue, and it's going to get worse before it gets any better. And parents need to wake up.
That's for sure. Well, we need to take a quick break from our sponsor. When we come back, we're going to ask Robert what's a typical day look like for him, how he stays motivated, and all that kind of stuff. So, folks, do you know what higher education entities are doing? I'm really against this. They are inflating grade point averages to make it look like they're doing a better job of teaching students when there's mountains of evidence that says they aren't. And I beg you to watch the higher education webinar we have over at screwthecommute.com/webinars, or you can just click on webinars in the nav button. But it's an expose by not just me, because I'm promoting my vocational school, my internet marketing school. It's high-level educators who are seeing what's going on in higher education. And listen, this could save you hundreds of thousands of dollars in wasted money and effort. And they found that they've tracked 2,000 kids over many different universities and colleges. They're spending a total of 8 hours a week, not only preparing, but attending classes. The rest of it is eating and partying. Now, I don't know if I'd want to mortgage my house to pay for that. So check out that webinar, but be prepared to be mad when you see it. And if you want something that's legitimate and quick and has an in-demand skill, check out my school at imtcva.org. All right, let's get back to Robert. Robert, what's a typical day look like for you? Let's say one when you're working and one when you're out on a job somewhere and one when you're home.
Sure. So, you know, being a solopreneur, right? My day consists of, well, you know, being a family man. You know, if I'm home, then I'm either getting the kids off to school, I'm either taking them to school, or I'm working out of the home office, and we have an office near the kids' school. And then from there, you know, it's administration. That might involve, you know, cleaning up emails and making sales calls, or working on the various projects that we have going on, or dealing with the client administration. I'm constantly creating, so I'm creating programs revolving around all the various certifications we offer. I'm constantly working with all the different partnerships that we have. We have partnerships in Boston and in Arizona with different companies that we have LLCs with. So we're always in, creation mode, implementation mode, bringing attention to the brand. How many different facets of that there are.
Yeah, for sure.
And then there's execution. There's once you have an agreement, then you are getting on a plane and you're going to present that program, or you're, doing that webinar or that coaching call. So, there's a number of different things that we're doing.
Now, you say we a lot. Is your wife and kids involved in the business?
So my wife administers, and she, handles all of my travel and all of my in dealing with clients. I'm not good with the clients. It's much. I'm a two. I respond in 2 words via email, where she says nice things and everything else. Yeah, so I'm better off just not dealing with the clients, because I'm just not good like that. Other than that, I have teams of people that handle all my tech. As far as desktop publishing and creating marketing materials and building out web pages, and I'm dealing with them, pretty much every day, because again, we're always in creation mode. And then, the various partnerships that I have with all the various certifications, we have various hardware and software that we offer, and affiliate relationships with various companies that we're promoting their products. So, there's hundreds of balls in the air, right? And every day it revolves around managing all of that and making sure that everybody's getting what they need, and everybody's doing their taking care of their responsibilities and so forth. And then when I get on a plane to go speak, it's hotels and airports and rent a cars,
yep.
and then getting on the client site 1 to 2 hours ahead of time, and making sure that the event goes off as it's supposed to for the planner, and following up with that planner and gifting the client, and and then starting all over again.
So what do you like best about working for yourself, and what's the worst part?
So, I am essentially unemployable.
Me too.
Right?
Yeah, I know that.
I've been asked, I've been headhunted, and I've been asked to come on board and to commit, and I wouldn't even know how to answer to anybody in that regard. So that said, I'm still a team player. Like, you have to work in a team. So I do know how to effectively communicate with multiple people and via partnerships and so forth. But unemployable, and I like the fact that if I want to plan a vacation, I can plan a vacation with my family around speaking and consulting and everything else. And if I get a gig that is, going to bring in some bacon, then we cancel the vacation sometimes. Sometimes you got to move things around. So I have that flexibility, and that's what really it all boils down to, is all that flexibility that we have. I will say that, when school's out, mid-June, that, we spend a lot of time in my boat. So from, the middle of June to the beginning of September, I was in my boat 23 times last year with the family. And that means up and down the coast of Massachusetts and New Hampshire and Connecticut and Maine. And, we go to all kinds of fun beaches and little islands, and boating is fun for the family, especially, in the coast of Massachusetts area. And so most of the people that I know that have actual jobs in boats, they did not spend 22 days on their boat.
Right. They might have spent 22 years paying for their boat and use it once a year.
Yeah. So I plan my summers around the good weather and, sunny days, not a lot of wind, so not a lot of chop, and getting that boat in the water. And, that's summer camp for my kids. And it's good family time too. So, we've seen a lot and done a lot and ate a lot of good food and had a lot of good wine. And, so we have my kids have seen more and done more in their lives already at this point than I did before I was 30.
There you go. You know what I feel bad about? I feel sorry about is when your girls get older and guys start coming around. It kind of reminds me of those guys that are standing at the door with a shotgun when the boy picks her up for her date. Oh yeah, because what if the kids come around and they got cell phones? What are you going to do?
So, well, for one, whenever we have kids over the house, we have a no cell phone policy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's no mobile phones coming in my house. They dropped off. My wife takes them, so no cell phones in my house. And then when my kids are invited to parties, one of the first things we ask the parent is, do you have a no cell phone policy? Because my kids aren't going to parties where there's going to be cell phones any longer. We did that for a little bit, and it always turned out bad. So we make sure that any party that they're invited to, that there's a no cell phone party, and we're upfront about it. And usually the parents appreciate that. Their kid may be a cell phone kid, but when we bring it to the parents' attention, they always honor it. It's never a problem.
Wow. Yeah, I think a lot of them never even heard of such a thing, probably.
Oh yeah. Well, more and more you start to see it because of all the drama.
Mm-hmm.
And like getting back to my kids and shotgun. I always tell my kids, just tell your boyfriends down the road that your dad's got a walk-in freezer and a wood chipper. And,
That's what I said. That's what I meant. Oh boy, well, it's been great catching up with you, man. This is really great. So I want everybody to check out the show notes so you can get Robert's name spelled correctly. Get over to, we'll have links over so you can check out all his books. And if you happen to be in a company that needs this kind of service, I mean, this guy's the bomb. Look at that, 5,000 interviews, and I mean, this guy is the real deal. And he'll, I can tell. And I've known him for a long time, he'll tell it like it is, because the last thing you need is patted on the back for poor performance that's going to hurt your company. That's for sure. So thanks a lot, man, for coming on.
Hey, anytime. Thank you.
Yeah. And for everybody else, make sure you get a hold of our app so you can listen to this again. I'm sure you're going to want to play this one for some parents that you know, or for your spouse if you happen to be listening to this, because there's some heavy duty parenting information in this that I was not expecting. But I love it. So check it out. Check out our app so you can take us with you on the road. And we will see you all on the next episode. Catch you later.